I think we're ready.
All right.
This is episode 2.
Episode 2. The Empire Strikes Back.
Yes. Welcome to the. We didn't talk about who was supposed to introduce us to the podcast today.
That's right.
This is the Saranac Lake Effect Show.
Saranac Lake Effect Show.
Episode 2. Mm-hmm. So we're excited to be here.
We are live from what we'll call it Cedar Street Studios. May or may not be a
real
reflection of where we are.
Right. It's a hidden location still, but someday it'll be revealed.
Rolls off the tongue. Cedar Street Studio.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, so episode 1, we talked about the lakes.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Kind of got into it.
Yeah.
So where they came, well, not where the lakes came, where they came from, glaciers and rocks, but where we were, how the village was established around these lakes, and then what we think should be some good stuff for the future.
Right. It was
Tonight,
a lot of fun.
yeah.
This is different topics tonight, that's for sure.
Yeah, and we're hoping that after that first episode, if you're here still with us, that you're giving us some feedback online, things that you think we can do differently or do better or do less of, something like that.
Right. Now you said something that I thought is a good motto for us.
Okay.
And this is something that everybody can keep us on track with. Is that we want this podcast to be both entertaining and informative.
Yeah.
We want both of those things.
Yep. No cheap laughs.
Right.
Yeah, if you're, what is that scene? You've seen Gladiator with Russell Crowe?
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you not entertained?
Right.
So that's what we're going for.
Right.
A little less dramatic. We're not in the what's that called? I've been there in person. The Coliseum. I've been there in person. I should know.
No,
that.
we are not in the Coliseum, that's for sure.
That's not where we're headed. But yeah. We want people to learn something, or correct our misinformation if we screw that up.
Right.
And but also we're trying to have fun with this. We're only doing this. Our gauge for is this a good podcast? Is are Jeremy and Justin having fun?
Yes.
And if we are, then we're having. Then that's all it is.
Right.
Yeah.
Even if we're the only ones.
Even
that
if nobody else
to it after.
Just talking to each other and the void.
Okay.
Well, so we don't really have a strict format for the show, although we're kind of getting there. One of the things we talked about was kind of doing a little bit, start some sessions with a bit of a rundown of the local village board session, what went on there.
Yeah.
Not for this to be a summary. If you want that, you can go to the board meetings in person. You can read the notes, the minutes online. But sometimes there's going to be interesting stuff to talk about. And so you were
sometimes, if not always.
Well, yeah, sure. And
Well, it depends on your definition of fun and entertaining. But,
it certainly does.
yeah, well, and I will say, one of the great things that the village is doing now is that they are broadcasting their meetings.
Right. Yep.
Live. So you can actually watch and listen to them. And so if you're busy with life, but you're still interested in what's happening, you can be listening and watching while you're making dinner or shuttling kids back and forth to different practices or events.
Absolutely.
And that's something they've been committed to for a while, and I think it's great.
Was that a natural kind of positive effect from COVID that they explored that option then?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I think there was. I think a lot of people all over the place in the world of government have been wanting to move in that direction.
Yeah.
And the pandemic certainly accelerated it.
Sure. And now you see some companies, we're getting global here, but pushing back on that, wanting to get the workers back in the building.
Yeah.
But or if you don't have time to listen to the village board minutes, listen to the Saranac Lake Effect Show. You get a little something.
Exactly. You get the most important and the most fun.
That's right.
Items.
Yeah.
From the meeting.
So we're totally trying to undercut the village board's
We
fee.
won't. We should find a different way to say that.
We can. We'll fix that in post.
Yeah.
Okay. No. We definitely. Jeremy is a former mayoral candidate and dedicated citizen going to a lot of the meetings. I myself have only been to a few, but I definitely think if you live in the village and you care about the village, it's a great way to spend a little bit of time. Whether you can't do it in person, having it online is great.
Right.
But there was a village board meeting recently, and there was some highlights, maybe.
Yeah, it's a couple of highlights.
Yeah.
I think we should focus on, and we don't need to. We're not going to spend the whole time on this. We've got really fun topic
Yeah.
to get to. But there's a couple things that I think are worth just discussing. And one of them we should dedicate at least an entire podcast to.
Yeah, and I think that's what that one being,
Short-term rentals.
which will probably, if you are out there listening, evoke some strong feelings one side or the other, good and bad. And we certainly hope to have guests, at least one guest, if not more, in the future to discuss the issue of short-term rentals in
Right.
the village.
Yeah. So just a little bit of background. The village has been discussing the issue of short-term rentals for a while. The new board has jumped in and committed to getting regulations in place early in the new year. So they had a work session last week, and they had a follow-up work session earlier this week, and where this was the topic. And what I really liked about, or something that just came out in the discussion, it was just very free, and everybody felt comfortable to share their thoughts about things. When I got done listening to it, I couldn't help but rooting for Saranac Lake.
Okay.
Whatever the outcome
Sure.
is of the regulations, the passion and also the respect coming from everybody who's involved in the conversation.
But who is involved in the conversation?
Well, at this work session, there was just members of the public,
Okay.
the village board, village staff, and members of the housing task force.
And is there an overall, it seems to be, when we talk short-term rentals, we're talking essentially Airbnb and VRBO, people coming in and doing that.
Yes.
And so is there an overall kind of sense that this outsider's point of view is that we're saying we think short-term rentals can be good when regulated a certain way, and we're trying to figure out how we regulate that?
I
So
think
it's not just the
that's
Wild West anymore?
I think that's a very, very accurate way to summarize how the village is looking at it right now.
Okay.
And again, it's just been really fun to watch because it just reminds me of why I live here.
Sure.
Because everybody recognizes that something needs to happen. People have different opinions about how it should be rolled out.
Sure.
But behind all of it is just this incredible passion and love for their community.
Well, and so it seems that, I mean, this is not something I know a lot about, but playing, devil's advocate. So if you're like, one side would say completely abolish short-term rentals because the negative to a short-term rental situation is entire neighborhoods can be turned into vacation spots.
Right.
Or if you are unfortunately the one person who lives there year-round and all of your neighbors are now vacationers who, let's be honest, vacationers are often not. I mean, they can be a little loud sometimes. It's not always the best, or at the very least, you don't get to know these people very well.
Right.
Flip side to that being maybe that, well, there have been neighborhoods, entire almost streets in town and around the village where there wasn't, they were either vacant homes or run down, and people have come in and fixed them up. So what you have is kind of a ghost town, and now it has some action. So
yes, and there are a lot of residents in this village who are that have STRs. That's the acronym for short-term rentals, and who are paying their tax bill and their mortgage bill with their STR.
I remember when I first moved back here a couple of years ago, talking to some friends, and they knew what I do is for a profession, for a job. But they said, "What's your side hustle going to be?" So what do you mean? So you got to have a side hustle if you're going to make it.
Everybody does.
You got to have
right?
a side hustle, yeah. So maybe this is our new side hustle.
For some people, it's a short-term rental.
Yeah, and for a lot of people,
it
yeah.
means it makes a big difference for them.
Well, a couple of friends of mine who bought homes this past year, and the ones they chose were ones that had like a mother-in-law, suite attached, or
Yes.
something where they could. Maybe the mortgage was out of reach because the prices were so expensive, but with that extra STR income, they can make it work.
Yeah, and not because we're going to come back to this
Yep.
in future episodes. But I think the village board has a really good handle on all of these different aspects of the discussion and all of the different ways that people are benefiting from STRs, but also the potential negatives.
Sure.
And so I'm feeling really encouraged by their approach, and they've committed to having regulations in place early next year.
And as the village board members, are they all kind of in agreement on what they think regulations should look like, but they're bringing in other voices to make sure they're honoring the voices of the village residents, or is it there even among the village board there's very different opinions on what we should or shouldn't do?
Well, the 2 work sessions they've had so far, I think there's been a lot of agreement on some of the underlying principles and objectives that they want, that they share. And then you take those and then actually craft regulations from them.
Sure.
And it seems like there's a lot of consensus.
Okay,
amongst
well, that's
the
good.
board.
Which isn't
So-
always the case with any
No,
board.
no, and certainly there will be discussion along the way, but the process right now seems very refreshing.
Good.
And
That's
I'm
great.
excited to watch it play out over the next couple months.
Well, that's great. I think one of the things, and not to get too global, in society that I think is unfortunate is that we've really lost the ability to engage in civil discourse. And seeing that modeled,
Right.
maybe not every high school has a strong civics course. So maybe if there's more issues like this, and we can, get high school students involved in at least watching or listening to these sessions or something, and seeing more of what it's like to come to a very controversial topic, something people are very
Yes.
passionate about here on both sides, and actually working towards a solution that works for everyone,
Right.
as opposed to just digging in your heels and saying I'm right and you're wrong. So that's
Yeah.
good to hear. I'm glad. I mean, it's always good to hear the government is functioning well. That's not always the case.
So let's talk for a minute about the other highlight, at least for me.
This I can't wait.
This is exciting stuff.
Yeah.
And that
Says you.
is, we're going to talk about government accounting systems.
All right. Don't go anywhere or don't leave.
You heard me, I said it. Let me say it again. The exciting world of government accounting systems.
When you suggested this before we started, I admittedly was like, "What?" You said, "What now?"
Right.
Accounting.
Yes.
We're going to talk about accounting
Right.
in episode 2.
We're going right into
All right.
it. And we'll only spend a couple minutes
Sure.
on this. But the treasurer for the village gave a presentation on on getting a new accounting financial system, basically new accounting software for the village.
Okay.
We've had the same software for a long time, and he went through and described some of the missing features and ways that more modern accounting systems can actually make his life easier, make it easier for him to share data, both with the village board, but financial data about the village's finances with the village board, with the public, and also they're required to submit a lot of financial information to the state. And so he did a great job explaining all of these types of benefits and how a new system could make that easier, and also how the system that he wants to get has features that the old system just doesn't have.
So when you say it's an old system, how old are we talking? Like a long time, it's a relative term, so it's a long time.
I don't know exactly how long they've had it, but I think it's been a couple of decades, because I know they had it.
So maybe even in the 90s we're talking.
Yeah, well, yeah, it could be. We should find out. I'm going to have to ask the question, but I do know that it was in place before I arrived at the village, because I moved here to work for the village of Saranac Lake.
Right.
And it was in place then in 2007.
So 2 questions that makes me care about when you talk about accounting and the treasurer of the town. Is this going to lower my taxes?
No.
No. Okay, that's all right. Can I pay my water bill online with this new
Yes.
system? All right, then I'm in.
Right, so that was what
Okay.
that's one of the features he talked about.
I'm in that. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll still pay my taxes,
Right.
but if I can pay my water bill online, if I can save whatever a stamp costs.
I
these days,
believe that was one of the features that he is excited to be able to bring online.
then I am sold.
Well, so
that is exciting.
that is exciting, right?
It honestly is exciting. I really dread the water bill, not so much because of the amount, but because it means I have to go and buy more stamps and write checks. I don't like to do that.
Right, or stop in the village office, which is what I do, so I don't use the stamp.
Yeah, I could do that too, but I haven't. But yeah, so
Well, so we don't have to dwell on it, but I do think that from a government efficiency and
Yeah.
transparency standpoint, it's not about criticizing the old systems, but just what we've learned and applying technology.
Well, if we're talking about technology, I mean, with how fast technology
Yeah.
changes the world, if we're using a system that's 2.5 decades somewhat old, I mean, that's
Yeah.
that's not good.
No,
It's
and
just,
so it's a big investment. It's going to take them a long time to actually roll it out.
Okay.
But the board seemed very excited, and so I think they're going to move ahead. It seems like, and I can't wait. So now we won't talk about it anymore because
Well,
we put a lot of
I
people
want the
to sleep
update.
already.
Yeah. Well, no, well, when I can pay that first, we'll do an
Well, there
actual
we go.
live feature.
Yes,
When I can pay
live
that first
feature.
bill.
Right.
So, that's good. I mean, hearing more about those action being done. They're not just talking. They're going to put in some kind of regulations around short-term rentals. There's new accounting software coming on board. So this show is about Saranac Lake moving forward.
Right.
This is good
Well,
stuff.
and you were asking questions like, how does this impact me?
Yeah.
Right.
What's
Like,
in it for me?
what's in it for me? And sometimes things get lost in the shuffle about what's happening in our government, whether it's village government, state government, but it can be these kind of somewhat boring topics or boring things that actually do affect us and we don't even know it. So being able to pay your water bill online, there's a convenience to you,
100%.
right?
Absolutely.
Being able to better review and analyze the village's finances and how it spends your tax dollars
Yeah.
that's government transparency.
I was
That's
going
what
to say,
we
so
want.
there's going to be transparency where I, as a citizen, can log in and see where my tax dollars are going,
Yeah.
breakouts of what percentage of that
Easier
money is.
for the village staff
That's-
to provide that.
That's what we all want with our taxes. It's like, I'm happy to pay this, but where's it going? So
Right.
Maybe I'm not happy to pay it, but I will pay it. But where's it going?
Right.
But okay, well, that's a good little summary of what happened at the most recent board meeting. And again, if you're still with us, all you accountant aficionados, thanks for hanging tight.
We have them still hooked.
Yeah, that will be a regular feature of the accounting, the what's the haps with the accounting software. All right, well, we also want to talk about something that's very important. Talking about kind of going back decades and the way things used to be and the way things are now. Downtown Saranac Lake, or just downtowns in general. Why part of your profession is helping communities grow. And so, larger question is what makes downtowns so integral? I mean, I could conceivably live in my house and commute to my job and never go downtown if I didn't want to. I could live a life where downtown meant nothing to me. I don't. I like downtown.
Yeah.
But why are downtowns so important? And a little more of what's going on with our downtown.
Well, we've been talking about this topic a little bit, knowing that we wanted to do it, and it really needs to be a multi-part series. So we don't need to get to it all today, but it's a downtowns that's the question, right? That's the topic. Why do downtowns matter? And you said it, like, you don't have to interact with your downtown, but you like to, right?
Well, there's a strong push here to, our acronym SL is Saranac Lake, but you also see SL that stands for Support Local. So, and that's happening all over the country. Support local,
Yes.
buy local, all of that. And this is more your topic, so I'm going to shut up and listen a lot more here soon. But downtown Saranac Lake, having grown up here, it looks in 2022, downtown Saranac Lake doesn't look. It's not the best it's ever looked. We'll say it that way. We were talking before about how there are certain parts of downtown that are beautiful. There's other parts where I can look at empty storefronts and I can remember when that used to be Fact and Fiction. That used to be Kilroy's Video Store. That used to be Double J's Pizza. And now it's just 3 empty store lots with spray painted rent prices on them.
Yeah.
So, all right. More about
Well,
this
so let me ask you a couple questions.
Yeah.
Let's make this really
Flip it on
personal.
me. Okay. All right.
Yeah. So you said you do, even though there's parts of downtown that you might describe as rough around the edges. You like downtown Saranac Lake and you like going there. What What attracts you to it? How do you use it as a neighborhood?
I mean, I think I like, as a parent, I like walking my children through downtown, like walking my dog downtown. I like that I can walk through downtown and I can almost every time I go, not every time, many times I can walk downtown in a village like Saranac Lake, I can bump into someone I know or at least see someone that I know. That feels, you live in a small town like this because you kind of want that connection. You don't want to just feel like a number. And so maybe you don't talk to that person, but you see someone you recognize. I mean, usually if you're walking down, you'll see Adam from Grizzle Tees walking up and down the street. Adam does that a lot. I am. But you'll see someone you know. So I like that. And I do like seeing, there is change in storefronts sometimes. So seeing kind of, here's this place that's been here forever, but now also here's something new. Or I can pop into, Ampersound and go in there. I remember when Ampersound was not in the main street of downtown.
Yep.
It's just that walkability, and from place to place, it changes quite a bit. It isn't like this isn't like the X section of downtown. It's like every storefront is going to be something very different. So you can walk up and down it in not a very short amount of time,
right,
and experience different things, different people, and it's a safe place to do it.
We should record this. Oh wait, we are.
We are.
Okay.
Good thing.
Well, and the reason I asked that is I genuinely was looking for your feedback as a resident of this town. And sometimes, I mean, this is a business that I'm in and very passionate about. Sometimes I think I might get a little out of touch sometimes and focused on the mechanics too much instead of how people relate to their community. You hit on a bunch of important topics or important things that speak to you. And I think that's the crux of the matter. So, and I got a list here. We can go through a couple of things, but one of the ways I like to describe downtowns are as the living room of a community, or you could maybe the dining room table of the community. And it's not something that every community has, for one. So we're very lucky in this community because we do have this place that acts as like the community gathering space. And it's a place where anyone can come and get some social interaction, because even if you're just walking down the street and saying hi across the street to someone you know, or being able to go into a business, and even if you're not buying anything, you probably know the store owner. So I love things like the parades that we've got, and tree lighting ceremonies, and different events that happen, the music on the green that happens. All of these things are part of this creation of what's called a third space, something that's different than where you live, something that's different than where you work. It's like where you go to get social and to be entertained and things like that. And we are so lucky that we even have a space like that. So let me ask you this. You've been to a place like Clifton Park.
Mm-hmm.
Do they have parades in Clifton Park? Maybe they do. But where would you have a parade?
Yeah.
What's the equivalent in Clifton Park? I know they have a mall there.
Right.
Malls used to be cool. I don't know if they're cool anymore.
Yeah, no, growing up here, we used to drive, as teenagers, we would drive to Plattsburgh to just walk around the Plattsburgh Mall.
You get to go to the mall.
You get to go to the mall. If you're really adventurous, maybe go to Albany and cross gates. But yeah, I think I see that. I agree with that. I think the interesting thing to me because you're right, we do have this unique downtown feel. What's interesting to me, though, is that, and this was talked about in the past around one of the issues facing the village of like, how do we cater to tourists versus locals? How do you balance that? If you go to Lake Placid, they're very much catering to tourism. That's what that is. You can't enter Lake Placid downtown and not just think tourists. Like, you might walk up and down the Lake Placid strip and you might not see a single local. That happens probably very frequently. That's not the case here. We're 7-8 miles from Lake Placid downtown.
Right.
It's very different. and then go over to Tupper Lake, and it's kind of its own entity. So I guess I'm curious what I don't think that Saranac Lake wants to be Lake Placid in any way, and Lake Placid is a very different draw. But my question is more, I guess, how do we balance that? Because it seems like downtown kind of is that. It's still trying to do that dance of figuring out, is this a place for locals or is this a place for tourists? Is it for both? And depending on time of year, it does vary. I mean, right now in November, it's more for locals. But we're approaching the tourist time.
Right.
So yeah, that's for me is how do we do that? How do we do that dance? And I think we're still trying to figure that out.
Well, I think it's a great question, and I don't think there's a magical solution or a silver bullet for finding that balance. And it's something we should always be thinking about. But I'll say this. I think that a very strong approach to making a strong community, strong neighborhood, strong downtown is focusing on people, and especially the locals. I think that if you create a place that is attractive to locals, then the visitors will follow and also find it attractive.
So if there's one thing, because right now in downtown, I'll just say it, growing up here, I remember a time where there wasn't a single empty storefront, and now there are. And maybe that changes in a month or so. I hope it does.
Right.
But I can remember different vacant storefronts that are vacant now that weren't. And I can, and my aunt owned Sharper Image Hair Salon. That was her salon. There was no salon there. She created that. She's since moved away, but that was her salon. The building that used to be Sheeper's Jewelers forever. That's where my grandfather worked for 50 years, raised a family of 6 by working there. And came back from World War II, and that's where he worked, Sheeper's Jewelers. And I bought my 7th grade girlfriend a cubic zirconian necklace from my grandfather at Sheeper's Jewelers. So I remember all those places. What is one thing that our downtown, and I have an answer to this, I'm not going to tell you my answer until you go first. Right. What is one thing our downtown doesn't have that you think if we had it, it would improve our downtown and it would be beneficial to both, locals would enjoy it, and it would actually bring more tourists maybe to us?
I think there's multiple answers, obviously. Yep. There's always more than one answer for something like this. But if I had to choose one thing, it would be more downtown residents. More people living right in downtown as a neighborhood in and of itself. Okay.
So downtown had more of like a okay, all right.
And we're lucky. I think we have very low vacancy rate downtown.
Oh yeah.
You can go to downtowns you don't have to travel far to find a main street or downtown where the first floor might be occupied, and then you have 2 or 3 floors of vacant space.
Yeah.
We don't have that. Most of our buildings downtown are fully occupied with apartments and people living in them.
So if we had more, you're saying if we had more residential downtown?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That would lead to more increased foot traffic of locals, but how would that benefit tourists?
Well,
how would that bring in more tourism?
If you create an environment, if you're reacting to the demand that comes from locals, and you're really fine tuning what you offer to them, the visitors will come because they're looking for something similar. They're looking for authenticity. Visitors are these days, travelers are looking for authenticity. Yeah. Right? So if we give them a real neighborhood, that's real. I think that's all you have to do. Yeah. We don't really need to overthink it.
Yeah, they're not coming here saying, where's the Buffalo Wild Wings? Like they want the Adirondacks experience.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a different way to answer that, which I like that.
So what was your answer?
Well, my answer is, and with all due respect to I'm not saying it has to go where, because we used to have it. And I'm not saying it needs to go where it once was, but a movie theater. I really feel like a movie theater is something we need to have back in our town. Yes, you can go to Lake Placid and watch a movie at the Palace, but back in the day when it was the Berkeley Theater and there was one movie playing, one screen, and when I was in middle school on Friday nights, you went to the movies. You just did it. So, which was terrible in the days of like Titanic, because that movie played for like, I think I saw Titanic 7 or 8 times in a row in the theater because it just
kept
kept
going. And that's the only choice you had.
Right. You just,
right.
I could recite every line. I don't know how to do it on the next podcast, episode 3.
I might skip that.
Saw Forrest Gump many times. Saw movies like How to Make an American Quilt, which you don't typically think a 13-year-old adolescent wants to go to, but let's play. So,
what you have.
But I the last couple of years with COVID, theaters took a hit, but I do think that if done properly, I think a movie theater could be a really great thing.
Anything like that are great for downtowns, no question. So if we're grading your answer, I give that an A.
Okay.
That's tried and true method.
So I win.
You can claim that you win. Yes.
No, okay. Well,
that's a very good answer.
But also, but your point about residents, I just thought it was great about that, is because some people that are that call downtown their downtown, they live out in Vermontville. They're 25 miles out. But some people don't want to live out there. They want to be able to, maybe they don't want to live in New York City, but they want that experience, that feeling of, I can walk to everything I need. I can walk to my job, I can walk to the store. You can do it.
Yeah.
So I like that too.
Well, and that's something we can talk about this some other time too, is providing choice in experiences, providing choice in housing, both in its location and type. And sometimes I think that we get too wrapped up thinking about what we want as the ideal housing situation. Yours might be similar to mine, but might be different in some ways. Yours and mine might be different than our parents. It might be different than somebody who's 20, or even how we felt about things when we were 20.
Sure.
And unfortunately, we as a society are now trying to catch up because we don't provide the variety that people are looking for. And it's not to say we should force any type of housing on anybody, but I think every healthy community's got a lot of choice. And there will always be a lot of people who would love to have an affordable downtown apartment.
So you said before that the residences that we have downtown are mostly occupied.
Yeah, I think we have very low occupancy downtown.
But are they occupied by long-term renters, or are they occupied as STRs?
No, I don't remember the number. We can look it up because the village did some analysis on this. The actual number of STRs downtown is very low compared to the actual number of units.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I always love it winter carnival time in February when the parade's happening, and I would never want to live downtown myself. I like being a little more out in the woods, like I am. But I'm always envious of the people who live in those downtown, those second and third level, right? Because they have the best view, and it must be such an amazing view up there to watch the parade. And so it's the one day out of the year. Although admittedly you're using your balcony in February, or you're opening your windows in February.
That's Saranac Lake.
That is,
That's cool.
I was explaining to my daughter the other day about the cold, and she was coming out of gymnastics practice, and she left, and she wasn't wearing her jacket. She just went from LPCA to the truck, just wearing shorts and a t-shirt.
Yeah.
I said, put your jacket on. She goes, no, I'm fine. And it was such a proud dad moment that now that she was doing good in gymnastics or could do a handstand or a flip, it was that she walked in like 25-degree weather with a t-shirt and shorts. I'm on her way. I'm doing something.
Yeah. Well, she's an Adirondack girl.
I tell her, it'll make you tough. Yeah. So, Santa Barbara, 72 and no humidity is wonderful, I'm sure, but it doesn't make you very tough. No offense to Santa Barbara.
No, but
welcome to come
we here like the variety. And,
Yeah.
you have to work for it a little bit here.
Yeah,
And
100%.
anything worthwhile takes effort.
So absolutely. And so I'm thinking of all the a lot of the places we used to have downtown. Like you don't want to pick on it. Like I understand why our local fact and fiction bookshop isn't here anymore. I get that. It makes me sad. I understand why Kilroy's video store, is not there anymore. Those things make sense to me. The movie theater doesn't make sense. I want a movie theater back. And there was also there was something as a kid. We both have children. About that, you asked like what I like about downtowns. Like I spent so much of my youth downtown. Like, it was after school.
Right.
If I wasn't going to a sport or whatever it was, where are you going to be? I'm going downtown. And my friends and I would go to Owl's Nest and we'd scrounge together $1.25 to get a slice. And then we'd go to what is now Blue Moon. It was called the Yum Yum Tree, which was,
No.
Oh, yeah. So
Tell me about that.
Blue Moon used to be called the Yum Yum Tree, which is essentially like a little bakery and candy shop. Like straight out of when you walk in there, it's like Willy Wonka. I mean, the candy sticks and all that stuff. And they also sold jewelry. Also got a girlfriend, something else. They had a lot of girlfriends in middle school. Only a couple actually. So and then you could walk over to where now it's gone. So where Grand Union is now, it changes so much. Grand Union is now. If you're looking at Grand Union and you're looking left, kind of like up towards the park there, Stewart's Park. There used to be buildings there,
Right.
And they burned down. And my friend Eric Newman, his family's business, Newman and Homes, was there. And I remember the night that when it caught fire because there was a laundromat next to it, and it caught fire, and it felt like the whole town was out watching, which was a really dramatic scene. But next to that was Hoffman's drugstore. We used to go in and there was all these places that I would go to as a kid, as a probably early middle school student, where me and my friends could go, and it was almost like downtown was our youth center, and you could choose
Right.
where you wanted to go, and you could walk around, and no one worried about you.
Right.
But just be home by this time, and you're downtown. I don't know where you are, but you're downtown.
Yeah.
So
Well,
I miss that.
so that still exists. Obviously, it's not the same.
Yeah.
As when you were a kid.
Yeah.
But that is
Yeah.
that's a reality today, and we're really lucky because of it. Diane Fox, who you know well, superintendent of the Saranac Lake School District, has often talked about how she in her experience in education loves the fact that our schools are in such close proximity to the village and to downtown, and that kids can go downtown after school, and it's a safe and great place to be.
Yeah.
I think that, and I didn't have the privilege of growing up in Saranac Lake, but from what you're describing, I think Saranac Lake has been, for a variety of reasons, which we don't even have time to go into all of them tonight, has always been somewhat insulated from
Good word.
some of the forces at play, mostly against or contrary to keeping a downtown healthy.
Okay.
And so I would hazard a guess that while you were growing up and having these rich experiences downtown, most downtowns across the country were already in a state of despair.
Okay.
And again, we can go into some other day, we can go into more detail. And I think you were actually pretty lucky,
Oh, 100%.
compared to kids all over the place who might have lived in a village that had a downtown but was basically just a bunch of empty buildings.
Oh yeah, I mean, I remember even not so far from here, growing up playing basketball and going to neighboring towns and going to tournaments in places that are maybe 2 hours away, and you drive through these towns, and it'd just be it'd be vacant kind of storefronts everywhere, and just get nothing going on downtown. And you don't think of it at the time, but you're like, well, this is where like a lot of people live here. This is their downtown.
Yes.
And so I guess that's what, like, right, because right now I'm sure there are still, I mean, I see them when I drive through downtown now. I see kids with backpacks. You can tell they're usually middle school age students, sometimes high school, and they're just walking downtown, going to different
Still
places.
going to Owl's Nest.
And they're going to Owl's Nest, and they've got their, although something's off with that sauce, I'm going to tell you right now. Something's just, it's different. It's different. So yeah, I mean, there's different things going on downtown now that kids can go to, which I think is great. I don't want us to lose that. And when I see an empty storefront, and maybe they were there when I was a kid and I just didn't notice them. I feel like they weren't, but maybe they were. When I see the empty storefronts, I worry about. I guess that's what in the back of my mind is making me worry that we're going to lose that.
Well, I think it's a good thing to worry about. But here's a couple of thoughts that I have on that. And not to get, I don't want to lose the audience and get too.
If they're still here after accounting, because they're with us.
Well, okay, fair enough.
They're resilient.
So, as a matter of public policy, at local, state, national level, we have ignored downtowns for 50 to 70 years. In our housing policy, transportation policy, everywhere you turn, governments have been making decisions that are anti-strong downtowns and main streets. So this has been work for a long time. And again, I do think that Saranac Lake has been somewhat insulated from that for a variety of reasons, but it's not immune to it.
Right.
So people are starting to pay attention to downtowns. They love the authenticity. There's a lot of reasons, especially younger generations are flocking to them. But in my view, you can't correct a 70-year problem overnight.
Sure.
So when I look at a couple of the empty storefronts that we all see every day, it's just so frustrating. Though the reasons those buildings are like that have a 10, 20, in some cases 50-year history.
Sure.
And it's hard to just correct that overnight.
Yeah, it didn't happen overnight. We're not going to fix it overnight.
Right.
And we are compared to we do have a lot more going on in the downtown area, even though when I was growing up in some ways. I mean, the music. I mean, so the music that we had at the Berkeley Green and the music that we have at Riverside Park now, these new events happening now are exciting. And so there is, there's reason to be hopeful. I mean, there's so many things that I still love that I can bring my kids to, the fun runs that you're very much involved in. So, well, all right. I mean,
and I mean, and I guess that we got to keep that in mind, right? Like we want to be able to talk about what's not perfect in this community and learn from it, and always try. We should always be trying to be better, but that shouldn't take away from the fact that anyone listening to this, I assume, and we love this community. That's why we're doing this podcast, right?
100%.
So you and I can go through downtown and see something that's not perfect and want to figure out why is that and make some suggestions or wish for something different in the future, but without losing sight on the fact that this is still an awesome place.
I'm always using parent examples of my daughter was on a play date recently, and the friend's house she went to, they had a trampoline in the backyard. So of course she came home. We don't have a trampoline.
Now she wants.
Why don't we have a trampoline? I said, right, we don't have a trampoline like she does, but you've got this and this and this and this and this, and she doesn't have any of those things. And so, the theme I always try to get into her head is, comparison is the thief of joy. Don't compare yourself to somebody else, and don't lose sight of all the things you have. And so you're right. There's a reason that I moved back to my hometown. There's a reason that you moved here, several years ago, and are raising your family here. We love this place. We just want it to be, it's an 8. We want to see it be a 10.
Exactly.
We're on the way, and there's a lot of positive energy. So to kind of, all right, so we've kind to put a pin in this soon. So to wrap it up, what's our big takeaway for downtown? So we'll probably revisit this, and so there's so many things going on downtown.
The one takeaway is that, again, I already know that this is going to be a multi-part series.
Sure.
Because I have a list, and we only talked about one.
Right. Okay.
Of the reasons why downtowns matter.
Well, and we are going to have future episodes around this topic. We'll have episodes around having guests in who might be who are maybe a part of the downtown in a certain way, and they can talk about their role in the downtown. But I think finishing on your point about all the, like, you mentioned, like, Clifton Park doesn't have parades. Like, I mean, and it's not just, I mean, we have our 4th of July parade, we have our St. Patty's parade, we have our Kitty parade, we have the Halloween, we have obviously our carnival. We have so many things that we use our downtown for that we all line up at, and tourists come, we stand shoulder to shoulder, tourists and locals, and we celebrate downtown, and it's a great place to be. And yeah, I'm just excited to hear. I'm excited to see what's on that list, and I'm just hoping there's more accounting. Something about accounting on that list of downtowns.
I'll do my best.
It would be,
yeah.
Okay. All right.
The other takeaway, I think, from our discussion is that this is just my view on things. If you focus on the people who live here and focus on people, when you think about how you plan your downtown and what you do with it, you can win.
So, 30 seconds or less, we'll say as we wrap up. So, because you said there was governments are making decisions all the time that are counter to lively downtowns. What is one decision that they've made that's counter to a vibrant downtown community? Like, what's something that's actively working against downtown being the best they can be and sustainable?
State highways.
Okay. So allowing you to circumvent going through a town's downtown? Well,
the Department of Transportation owns and operates several roads throughout Saranac Lake, Route 86, Route 3, and a couple of those go right through downtown. And when you look at putting people first, the Department of Transportation does not have a stellar record.
Okay.
Look at the difference between Church Street, where Grand Union and Norries is located, and Main Street and Broadway, just a block over. The design of the street and the infrastructure is different. And the state highway is meant to move vehicles efficiently. The way you design a street focused around people is different than how you design a street to move vehicles efficiently. We could talk about that sometime.
I like this, yeah.
And as a community, you need to decide what's your priority. Moving vehicles efficiently or moving people and giving them a place to be entertained and socialize and prosper, et cetera, et cetera.
It's funny you say that with people, because I often sometimes, I'll admit I get frustrated sometimes when I'm driving through town and you can tell the way that pedestrians are using the streets, or people are driving like this. And the thing I always say to my wife is, it's almost like they think like people don't live here. They come here and they visit, and they're just walking through the streets and looking up at the sky, and it's like people live here. But that is such an interesting connection to what you're saying about designing roads and streets for moving traffic efficiently, or designed with people in mind. So I think that's a good note to end on.
And have that we can talk about that.
This will
you can
definitely
think about that in the meantime.
Yeah, and this will definitely be our episode on downtowns. But we will definitely have sometime in the probably not too distant future downtowns 2.0.
Yes. Yes.
All right.
Well, what else is there? Anything else we got to talk about tonight?
I mean, I think
we've done it.
I think we've done it. I think the one thing to mention is that episode 3 we will be having a special guest on.
Right. It'll be our first
Our
guest.
first guest. We'll see how that goes. Hopefully not our last guest. And to remind people that, yeah, if you want to be a guest on the Saranac Lake Effect Show, hit us up on our, come send us an email, come to the website, make a comment. And if you're interested in coming on, just tell us who you are and what you want to talk about.
Facebook is where you can find us, and also Saranac Lake Effect Show at gmail.com.
There you go. All right.
Okay.
Until next time.
Till next time.